Monks. Okay, here's why I love the monk. I grew up in the generation of, like, Saturday afternoon kung fu movies on network television. You know, watching Shaolin monks and badly dubbed, like horribly dubbed Chinese movies and, you know, kung fu and Shaolin and all of this kind of stuff. That is such a fond memory of my childhood, and being a child of the 70s and 80s, you know, growing up in that era as a little kid, lots and lots of that was like seeped into my psyche. Plus with things like the great Bruce Lee movies, it's hard not to love this quintessential character, this martial arts character. On top of that, I am a martial artist, and I have been for much of my life, most of my life, really. So for me, the monk is, in a lot of ways, near and dear to my heart. And the funny thing about that is, I haven't actually played a monk. I've created a character. I created a really cool monk character, and never got to play it in a campaign. Unfortunately, that campaign never came through. We sort of got things ready, and I had a huge backstory. Actually, I did a really cool thing. I had the voice, and I did an interesting backstory. I'll try, if I can, I'll link that video here so that you can see that. And just super fun time for me, and of course, I want to play the monk, I just haven't had an opportunity. One of the things that I did with that monk, and this was a little different from other classes that I've talked about here in this little mini-series, I thought it would be super cool to multi-class the monk with the barbarian. Very unconventional, but I wanted to make this monk like sort of an off-tank, sort of a... I don't know. I just had this really interesting, fun idea that I wanted to play with. If you know, check out that other video and you'll see what I was talking about. Monks are really interesting. Within the player's handbook, you essentially have the options of being like a really great martial artist, or you can sort of like mess with some elementals and almost have like sort of magical abilities. Think like Avatar: The Last Airbender and the fire, earth, air, and water benders from that cartoon and that story. That's essentially what the monk can be if you want to. And of course, you can always flavor, you know, even if it says something does specific types of damage, all you have to do is talk with your DM. You know, if there's something that says it does, you know, fire damage, talk with your DM and see if you can, oh, I want it to be water damage. Can we manipulate that? And most DMs, I mean, most DMs. In fact, if your DM doesn't want to do this, have them come to me or one of the other great DMs out there like Matt Colville or Matt Mercer, Chris Perkins, or any of them out there, and somebody will set them straight. Because your DM should be more than willing to work with you to create something cool for their settings. And that can be super fun. Now, I'm going to take a slight divergence from the player's handbook in this case because I have to say that I really, really like what was done with both the Kensei Monk and Matthew Mercer's Cobalt Soul Monk. The Cobalt Soul Monk, as beautifully portrayed by Marisha Ray, playing Beauregard in the Critical Role Mighty Nine campaign. This is an awesome monk, and I really like how they've stylized and manipulated. They've changed as Bo has been played throughout their campaign. They're realizing like, oh, some things work, some things don't, and they're making these little slight changes to make it a more effective class so that the character is being played the way Marisha had intended. It's really cool. So I definitely want to say, aside from the other classes where I've tried to stay true to the player's handbook, in this case, I want to suggest that maybe you take a peek at some of the other content available. Monks can be super fun. You can do them in a lot of different ways. And one of the interesting things I've heard said about monks is that they can be possibly the most survivable class that's available. That's an interesting thought, and I like that idea because, you know, you have things like, you know, the monk's ability to slow fall, and you have pretty good resistances, and you have great, you know, dexterity and so forth. You can stop arrows and these kind of things. So there's a really fascinating element to that. And as a monk, because you can multi-attack and do your, key attacks and all this kind of thing, flurry of blows and so forth, you have the potential to put out lots of damage. And the really fascinating things to me about monks is that they're not like other classes like the fighter or the barbarian, paladin even, or the rogue, who have these massive damage spikes. Like, think about a rogue can do, their sneak attack, or a fighter with their, their great weapon or something like this. They can put out massive spikes of damage. Whereas with a monk, what makes a monk fascinating is they can put out consistent damage over time because they have many attacks, which is really cool. Like, even at low levels, first level, you can still have 3 attacks in a round. That's pretty cool. So if you want to be someone who just like whips it up, isn't afraid to fight with their fists and their feet, and can, basically they are a weapon. And they can, if they want to, use monk weapons. Obviously, this is the class for you. Tell me your stories about your favorite monk and leave those in the comments below. I will be back tomorrow as we tackle the Paladin. Tune in for that. I'll see you next time. Keep rolling 20s until then. And remember, it's your game. Play your way.